August 5th, 2015. It's 7:30 Central. My name is Damian Carlson. I'm 6 Foot Dead on Twitter. This is the VBrownBag US edition. Tonight we're going to have Ariel Sanchez going over the VCP6 Blueprint Section 2.2. Some quick notes before we get started. As always, you can follow us on Twitter at VBrownBag. The Twitter hashtag is just pretty simply hashtag VBrownBag. We've got 4 properties, 4 podcast properties that run all around the world. And you can find all of our podcasts, both upcoming conference schedules and previous shows, etc., at professionalvmware.com. Also, some quick notes. VMworld US 2015 is coming up in a couple weeks at the end of the month, and Sunday, August 30th, from starting at 1 p.m. and ending at 4 p.m. on Sunday, August the 30th at City View at Metreon. It's across from Moscone West. There's like a city target there, or you kind of go up from an elevator. During that time, we're going to be doing the VM Underground opening act, which, if anybody remembers from last year, if they were able to go, it was a series of panel sessions that we did on Sunday afternoon. And then after that, we, of course, shut down for the official VMworld floor crawl thing that they do on Sunday night. And we'll open back up after that for the annual VM Underground party. So VBrownBag and VM Underground have been collaborating together for the past couple of years, and it's a joint effort between us and the Tech Talks that we're doing at VMworld this year, as well as the VMworld folks and our friends at the VRockstar over in Europe. Anyhow, thanks for letting me ramble for a whole minute. So anyhow, Ariel, I'm going to go ahead and pass the presenter rights over to you. While I'm doing that, if you'd like to introduce yourself, and feel free to get started. Everyone, if you have any questions or anything, feel free to throw it into the chat here within the webinar or on Twitter at VBrownBag or hashtag VBrownBag. I watch all of them during the show. Thank you.
Thank you, Damien.
All right, you should be good on the presenter rights.
Cool. I think I'm seeing something else.
Yep, I'm looking at Notepad right now.
Yeah, that's not it. Let me see how I fix that. Show, oh, it went to application, sorry. Let's see, is that what I want?
I'm guessing multiple monitors. This one is PowerPoint, yeah.
Excellent. All right. Welcome, everybody. My name is Ariel Sanchez Mora. If you looked at the previous BrownBag on this, Objective 2.1, you know it lasted 2 hours. So I'll try to keep this one very, very short, or at least as short as it should be. You can contact me in Twitter. I work at Convergys, an outsourcing company. I'm a systems engineer there. And today we're going to talk about network I/O control, which is, we had said last time that this was the distinctive topic between what the VCP6 Foundation exam is and the VCP6-DCV covers. Basically, this is only covered for that exam, for the VCP6-DCV. The most important thing to remember for the exam is that there's a new version of network I/O control in VCP6. It is now at version 3, and the biggest difference is that it now permits reserving bandwidth instead of just using limits and shares like in version 2. We're going to see some other things that change, but that's like the golden exam question right there. Let's go over the recommended material again. These are the recommended sections that the blueprint spells out. Most of what we're going to be doing here is in the networking guide, but there's also a lot of information in the performance evaluation that shows, it mostly shows like, oh, this is new and this is the result. So there's some things you can see in there. Yeah. Other awesome material for, of course, is the Chris Wall book and Mastering VMware vSphere 6. And even though this was for 5.5, the Chris Wall book, you will find that apart from NIOC, everything's about the same. So most of the things that Chris explains are still going to help you pass this exam. All right. Very similar to the last time, we're going to use some study guides that some people have already put on the internet, mostly Vladim's tonight, but David Stamen as well. There are several. These are two that I really like because of the way they've done it. All right, let's talk about network I/O control. So this is pages, it's about, what is that, like 20 pages of the networking guide. Like I said, the most important thing is it allows boundary reservation in version 3. Here's some of the things that I was mentioning, that if you are actually using network I/O control today and you are on version 2, which is what 5.5 has, then there are some trade-offs when you actually upgrade to version 3. Basically, you're going to see here that you're going to lose, I think this is cost of service, COS, and some user-defined network resource pools. So it's actually not going to be a nice upgrade. You can continue using version 2, or you can basically do it differently in version 3. And some things, as long as they don't involve those settings, they are translated into the version 3 equivalents, but they do advise you all over the document that if there's a disruptive upgrade, you have to do it with a lot of care, right? All right. Let's actually start taking a look at what's coming in the exam, right? So this is actually Vladim's post on this topic, and these are the things that you need to know. So identify requirements, capabilities, how to enable or disable I/O control, how to monitor it. So requirements are actually not that many. Since you're using it's only a feature of the distributed virtual switch, so you have to have the proper licensing. We've covered that. Yes, it's Enterprise Plus, but you know, depending on other functions or on other products that you may have, like NSX, you may have the distributed virtual switch already in your licensing, even if you don't have Enterprise Plus. Obviously, you have to do it on a VDS. One important thing is for the latest features, you have to be running on ESXi 6.0. You cannot run hosts that are not 6.0 if you have a VDS that's 6.0. You cannot join them to that distributed switch. And one interesting thing is that you cannot use IOV for virtual machines that you have on such a switch. Well, basically because you're hiding most of what the DVS would be able to do. So capabilities. So you basically are able to do resource pools into your I/O traffic, much like you would do with your CPU or your RAM if you're into using those. We're going to see the three things that are most used are in resource pools are limits, shares, and reservations. So let me go back here for just a little while. So let's talk about shares, reservation, and limits. This is something that you want to have as clear as possible for the exam. So shares, which is a value from 1 to 100, they reflect priority. So when you have, let's say, 2 resources or 2 objects competing for a resource, if you give someone more shares, he will get a bigger priority, let's say it that way. How you can think about it is if you divide something by 100, then you're giving this many to each one of your objects. And we're going to see this a bit later. But it's basically how you can say, okay, so you're more important than him, and let's say you're doubly important, I'll give you double the shares. Reservations, this is measured in bandwidth. You're going to see that you can actually select megabit or gigabit. One important thing for reservations is you cannot reserve more than 75% of a physical network adapter. And we're going to see something that I ran into while preparing this lab that I thought it was funny, but yeah, I don't know. You'll be the judge. One important thing is that if it's not used, then anybody else can use it. It's only when there is contention for the resource that the bandwidth comes into play. I'm sorry, that the reservation comes into play. And finally, limit. This one is probably the easiest to understand. This is the maximum that this will have, period. All right. So how can we test any of this? Well, I'm going to tell you what I attempted. And let me go ahead and bring over my lab over here. So we only have one virtual distributed switch today running on a couple hosts. And what I attempted to do, let me see if I can show it easily here. Is it that one? Yeah, this will work. What I attempted to do was create contention artificially, right? So what we have here, and apologize for using the C client, but it's actually much faster to just show what the experiment is about. We have here a couple hosts, and these hosts have, I think, 3 uplinks, maybe 4 uplinks, but I only have one on the DV switch. And what I've done basically is gone into this DV switch and told it, hey, even though you're a gig, you're a nested host with a gig connection, I'm going to force you to act like you're a 10 meg uplink. And I thought that was, oh yeah, that should make it so that if I have some machines, throwing 5 megs, 6 megs, that would make them be in contention. But you're going to see this real soon. So both of these hosts are a member of this distributed virtual switch. Host 5 right now is running 2 VMs, good and bad. I was going to make a third one called the ugly, but I didn't have the need to do it. And so you can see these 2 machines that I have here. What I've done is I've also artificially limited their bandwidth. So this one, I've actually told it, you know what, you're going to negotiate at 10 megs. And I have another one that I told her you're going to negotiate at 100 megs. So I thought, oh, this should be great, right? So you have 2 machines that are basically have some very big pings going on. These are 50K bit pings. And basically what they're doing is they're just trying to saturate their NICs. However, it didn't work as I expected because I can saturate the NICs all day long, more than the uplink has, and I don't see any contention going on. So maybe someone here can go and say, Ariel, if you do this, then you'll see some contention, but it didn't work that way. Anyways, what we can do is review how an IOC is set up. So the first thing you want to do to make sure that an IOC is set up is it has to be enabled at the DV switch level. One of the things that you could do is, and I tested this, you could go ahead and set up something that proves your network IO control settings and then just disable an IOC and enable it back again. And you could see the changes, as they happen. But sadly, I guess I couldn't do that today. We can do some other things. I think we can test the limits, or we can do that in a bit. Now, for most of the network IO control settings, we're going to actually be working off the Manage and Resource Allocation tabs. And here's the first time that we're going to see the shares values. This is the default. You can change this, of course, but you're going to see that everybody gets 50, and except for the virtual machine traffic, which is a bit higher. And the guide actually had a very nice graph that I want to show you now. Okay, so that was for brand reservation. No, sorry, it was for brand reservation, not for shares. But basically, it says, you know, make sure that your reservations are less than 75%. Sorry, man. Okay, so we have our shares, and you can see here that we have reservations. And we had talked that in version 3 of the network I/O control, we have this column that wasn't there before. So one of the things that you can do is you can start, in order to configure network I/O, you can choose to configure network I/O at 2 different levels. You can configure it at a port group, or you can configure it at the VM level. If you were to do it at the port group, you have to define first the virtual machine traffic here, and then you will actually come here and create a network resource pool. Let's say this is going to be 5. Once you have it, then you actually have to go, I think, into the port group. I think you click on it. And then you come in here and you tell it in the network resource pool that, okay, you're going to be in network resource pool 1. And this basically says, okay, now you have a bandwidth reservation that takes into account this port group. So this is cool if, for example, and let me go down here, if you want to make sure that, I don't know, 5 web servers or something like that have a capacity, a certain capacity that you want to guarantee that this 5 web servers will be able to hit. It's always dependent on the physical NIC. So you can't ever assign more than 1 physical NIC, just because you have to be careful of the aggregated VM reservations. But it is something that you can set up and say, okay, I'm guaranteeing that all my web servers that, I don't know, they're streaming YouTube are going to be guaranteed this amount in contention, right? The other one that's perhaps the easier one to see is just when you configured 1 VM. So let's go ahead and take a look at that. So instead of putting the setting at the distributed port group, you actually do this at the VM level, and you do it at the NIC. In the NIC settings, you edit the settings for the VM, and you actually go in here and you say, oh, guess what? You're going to get a reservation. So in this case, I have that my good VM has a 6 megabit reservation, and that should mean, and this is where I guess I was expecting something to happen, and I'll give you my idea of why it doesn't work. This should mean, in my opinion, that if I'm hitting more than, more than what the one uplink, and I just want you to notice here, it's 2 VMs. This host has both virtual machines, and I'm hitting more than 10 meg, right? But for some reason, the kilobyte graph is it's not even showing. Maybe it is 10 meg. Yeah, it is. But in here, you can see I have the bad machine transmitting, quite more than the good machine. But DRS, which was supposed to say, you know what, I have another host that is doing absolutely nothing on its network, and I could just move this VM over there. It didn't move it, so I'm not sure why that happened. What I was expecting was that, it would take a while, maybe 30 seconds or so, but it would come back and say, well, I think I should move that VM over there. But perhaps someone else can tell me, or can jump in and say, Ariel, looking at your setup, this is what you have wrong. But I have not been able to find it. I've been looking at it for maybe an hour. Let's go ahead and do something that we can actually do and see. So another thing we can set up on the VM directly is the limit. So right now we have the good machine with its 10 gig, 10 meg NIC is saturating that link. And this other one, I actually gave it a 100 meg connection and it's going at 60%. So let's go ahead and tell it, you know what, you're going to be a 20, or, 20 meg reservation. Let's go ahead and tell them, you got to get a limit. So you would go here and edit settings, come to the network adapter, and you tell it, 20 MB. And let's see what happens. Boom. Immediately you see the drop there. So limits are something that are real easy to set up. You can just tell it that's the limit. And you'll see it come down, you'll see it come up. This is one case that I think is very useful, not only for people that actually have a lot of networking, network-focused VMs, but also for basically anyone that ever wants to control how chatty any particular VMs on the network. You can just come and tell it, hey, that machine that I suspect the kids over there are just torrenting stuff on. There, you cannot do more than that. So that's one of the real easy ones to do in the lab and to see. One easy way to test it, I was thinking maybe I should get some software to do this, but you can basically run different size pings. And if you run enough, you'll be able to saturate the link. I found that with 50,000 as the size, that's about 8% of a 100 meg. I'm sorry, of a 10 meg, so that would be 0.8% of 100 meg. All right, so this should start increasing, and we should see it hit 50 after a while, I guess. Did I actually do that? I think I did.
Ariel, are the reservations, where are those only applied? Is that on the uplink or on the hosts?
Well, this reservation, it depends on where you put it. The reservation would be applied at the VM level, so it's a NIC property. Otherwise, if you go ahead and apply it at the distributed port group, that's a distributed switch-wide setting. So it doesn't matter if the VMs are scattered over several hosts. This is actually a setting that is global to the switch. So you're actually telling it, make sure that for the whole port group, you have this amount. So I would say, I guess that the most useful case would be when you have a farm of servers and you want to guarantee that you're going to get this amount over whatever happens, wherever they move. But one of the things that you probably want to take into account, and this is coming from someone that doesn't use network IO control every day, keep it simple, because you can start, if you start playing with this and that, you have to remember how that affects other settings. So always remember to, have a clear objective in mind when you're playing with network IO control, and if all you want is to guarantee a certain VM will have such bandwidth, go ahead and do the settings manually on each VM. But you may have the use case where you say, I want to give this distributed port group this guarantee. So it is a global setting thing. All right. Let's go back to what Gladden had in his log. So we've already seen where you enable or disable IO control. This is one of those easy ones. And this is the other screen that we saw a little while ago. So one thing that I wanted to talk also was IO control makes a difference or makes a differentiation between two classes of traffic. And those classes of traffic are system traffic, where we're talking about things that you manage at the ESXi level. So you can set settings for fault tolerance, for management traffic, NFS, etc. But you also have And the other differentiation is when you are talking about virtual machine traffic. So all the network resource pools that you are going to create are meant for virtual machines. So let me just go ahead and move those there so to show you, because first time I tried this, I was like, okay, so where do I click and add virtual machines in here? Again, it is a distributed port group setting. So once you add that port group, those VMs will appear into the resource pool. Let me just show that. All right. That's how you add them there. Okay. Covered that. And so this Vladan was also showing what I was saying about how to set up a reservation at the NIC level. Now, let me go here. So this was the other part that I really wanted to see and show in the lab, but I can't really find like much to show here. And I apologize for that, because I was hoping to see, you know, when, oh, look at this issue, look at this. But even when I set that, well, maybe when I set the limit, I got something, an event maybe. Yeah, I haven't found it to be like, oh, look at that, it clearly did something. I find that it's good at tracking what you've done, but it really doesn't. I haven't really seen like, oh, look at those events where it's doing this or that. So we have a violation here, perfect. And one of the fun things is, if you try to give a VM more bandwidth than what the network resource pool has, it will give you it's not a really clear error what you're doing. It will actually allow you to set it. Let me show you that. So right now, we have that the virtual machine traffic reservation is 7 megabits. But if you go in here and you tell, hey, VM, you're going to have, let's say, a 10 megabit reservation. It doesn't have to be something ridiculous. Let's say you have 8, right? It will mark at you that you did it wrong. And it's not really, tells you here, additional reservation is more than the available quota. But if you come back, I think that it actually allowed you to set it. So you could say, it should basically tell you, please don't do that. Or at least it shouldn't allow you to do it, but it does allow you. So Vladan put some things in here. You can check if it's enabled, disabled. You can check the version. You can look at the physical adapters. You can look at bandwidth. So those are all things that you will see when you actually go back to that. You can see those here. You can see what the bandwidth capacity is. So this is the sum of the uplinks that you have on this. And where I found this, where I think the problem is with why my lab isn't working, administration wasn't working, is, these are probably cracking, that I think vSphere knows that these are 1 gig uplinks. And even though I'm trying to limit them, you know, to 10 megs, I think it knows that it can give the VM more than 10 megs. Because otherwise, it wouldn't make much sense that I can actually, you know, hit 10 megs here and 50 megs here, and they're in the same switch and the same uplink, and nothing happens, right? So I think that's probably my problem. It would be interesting to actually do this on a physical host and see it. Now here's an interesting thing. It actually started coming down. And I wonder that if that's because of the settings I've been touching now. It's probably because of the port group setting that I did. So that would be a cool one. Let's go ahead and try and confirm that then. So if we go back to the port group, and we tell it be unlimited, no resource pool. Let's see if my traffic goes up again. Because it would definitely make sense there because, you know, you're trying to send 60 megs over a port group that you told only has 7, 14. So that would make sense if it did it correctly there. Let's give that a while. All right. Two things that I have, or one thing that I had left from the past week for Ankeet especially. Oh, before that, Section 2.3, it's basically going over again over all the settings that a distributor or standard switch can have. Sorry. That. Okay, so this is basically, it's around 40 pages of the guide, but you can look at everything about TMAN failover, VLAN security, traffic shaping, monitoring. We did cover this in 2.1, and we spent quite a lot of time on that, so you can watch that video. Just remember that you have to know the differences between a distributed switch and a normal switch. Those differences, except for network I/O control capabilities, haven't really changed in version 6. So one thing that I owed from last time is we were trying to get an LACP configuration working. And a lot of people offer me, you know, well, 2 people offered me a lab and told me, hey, go ahead and do it with my lab. But what I wanted to do was I wanted to make it so that anybody can do this. And normally, if I want to say anybody can do this, that means I want to do it in a nested ESXi lab. I'm pretty sure you can do this. I just didn't get the EOS trial license in time. But from looking at, you know, what people have done with EOS from Arista, you know, EOS runs in a VM. It's the same as you have on any switch. You can run the LLDP. You can do port channels, and there's a cool guide of how to run it on ESXi 5.5. So I was hoping to have that. Now, when I do get that, I imagine their marketing will call me at some point and tell me, hey, so you're interested in Arista. I will put a post and I will put it in the VBrownBag Twitter hashtag so that we can see, you know, okay, so this is a way that you can build a lag in your nested ESXi environment. Still, if you're interested, I recommend this post from Chris Wall. He goes into, he made a video, he explains it all, and that would be like seeing someone else do it in their lab because you can't do anything, right? So I recommend that video there. So going back here, I think honestly just my VM started crashing for some reason because we don't see after I removed them from there that they have come back. So I think that I'm still hitting some kind of artificial inconsistency just because I'm running everything nested and with artificial uplink limits, right? All right. Well, I think that's all I have for today, which is quite different from the 2 hours that we had last time. Do we have any questions out there?
No, sir. We did have a question earlier from Graham Mitchell. However, that was one that I had asked you. I'm not seeing any questions, either from the folks that are here or people out on Twitter. So
that's good and bad.
In
Yeah,
case,
everybody's like, this couldn't get something like this working, or they just not interested too much. It's normally better when they ask questions because that means they're interested.
Yeah, and it's probably, I mean, really, it's because NIOC is just like so stinking exciting. Right? So I can understand it. But, you know, the great thing about these VCP blog posts and podcasts and things like that you see within the community is that they last a very long time. I've had folks tweet me rather recently about some of the VCP5 stuff that I did with the VBrownBag back in the day. So yeah, even though there might not be, you know, an immediate question, it'll be out there for a long time, and people will still continue to download it as needed. Should anyone have any questions, how can they get a hold of you, Ariel?
Yeah. Oh, and another thing that I just started this week. I started a VCP study group in Google+. This came from the times that we had I think it was VMIS that started a VCP-DCV group. And that group has grown a lot. It actually has a bunch of people on it. And we really appreciated being able to ask, you know, people, hey, you know, I'm running into this question and I don't get it. Or, you know, what resources is everybody studying on? So it's not meant to be, it's meant to be NDA compliant, of course. You cannot talk about the exam. You cannot talk about whoever comes in asking for a dump or offers pirated material is going to get kicked. But if you're seriously studying, and I know that several people that are going to VMworld are actually, you know, they're going to take the exam there, and I'm one of them. If you're seriously studying, go ahead and join. I think we have over 35 people already. I did put this presentation in my Twitter. You can click on that, and then you can get to the link. Otherwise, I think you can just search for the VCP6 in Google+, and you'll find it. It's open to join. Anybody can join, of course. And, yeah, you know, we're basically just putting the VBrownBag videos, the study guides that people put, and where to find like most common information. Okay, here's the blueprint. It's only in the webpage now, stuff like that.
Yeah, that's pretty much how the VBrownBag got started. Just, you know, Cody Bunch was saying, hey, I've got to study this. Why don't I see if other people also have to study it, and we'll just study it together. And it kind of went from there. So, yeah, that's always helpful. Folks seem to really rally around, you know, efforts to study together. Kind of like those workout groups you might see on Facebook or something. You know. Yeah. So I actually do have a couple questions here that came in over the past few minutes.
Sure.
First one is from Kathy, and she says, "How do the exam questions from the VCP6-DCV differ from the 2V0621D? Does that make sense to you?"
Oh yeah, yes it does. So let's see if I have that open right here. So the main thing that you want to know is that the objectives are different for both exams. So I'm sorry, I missed the name. Was it Kathy?
Kathy, yep.
Yep. So once you go in here and look at, okay, so this is the VCP6 certification, you actually have to come in here and you have a foundations exam and the actual exam. So when you look at the foundation exam, which is 2V0620, you'll notice that most of these topics are relatively simple. You know, deceptively simple, of course, but these are very similar to how the VCP5 exam was. One of the biggest differences is that this exam is an exam that a lot of new certifications will have to take. If you're looking at cloud or network, you will have to take this VCP6 Foundation exam. This is the exam that is actually taken at home. Is not proctored. You don't have to go to Pearson VUE to actually go ahead and do that. You'll find there are some things, and I'll show one specifically for the networking scenario. Some topics that overlap from one exam to the other. but this is the best way to actually answer that question. Take a look at each one of them, and you will see that the exam topics are quite different. One of the things that is new in VSphere 6 is that you actually have to know, was it backups? And I'm pretty sure I saw backups somewhere. Storage, VApps. Somewhere along here, we had backups. Right, here it is. So you actually have to know quite a few out of VMware data protection, and you have to also know auto-deploy and host profiles is actually part of the VCP exam now. So those are things that were not in there before. Let me open the past presentation, because we had some topic overlaps here that we went over that. So some of the things that are very similar in between the 2VO and I'm probably saying it wrong, between the 621 and 620 exam, one of the things that is very similar is networking. 2.1, which is configure VSS, is covered in 2.3. Policies and features, which, I'm sorry, policies and features is the same. It's the same exam, the same parts of the PDF that you have to study for both exams. The 2.2, the configure virtual distributed switch, it's the same as the foundation exam, but it adds how to do group blocking, TOE, and Jumbo frames. So you just have to study that. And the VCP6 exam supposedly doesn't cover how to configure that simple switch, but since you can get asked in the VCP6 for anything that was covered in foundation, you should study it as well. So one of the important things is when you're studying for the VCP6-DCV, make sure you know everything that's covered in foundation. You may get caught in the exam, with something that was not directly in the blueprint, but it was in the foundations exam. So I hope that answers your question.
So speaking of the foundation exam, do you have to take a course before being authorized to take that foundation?
I don't think so. I think that the course is only for actually achieving the certification. You can take the exam before. One thing that is actually a lot of fun, and since I know that you've been around a while, it's the recommended training that they give you. They actually say ICM for the foundation and optimize and scale for the VCP exam. Now, you don't have to take a course if you are a VCP already. If you hold a valid, then you just do the exam. If you're a VCP on any other, you don't have to do the course. You can just take the exam. If you're expired, then you have to go into a course, but only one. So there's a bunch of courses. You only have to attend one. Requirements. So I don't think that you have to take it as a requirement to do the foundation exam, much like you can do the exam before and take the course later.
Okay. And it sounds like it's probably a free thing, right?
Ooh, I don't know if it's free, to be honest with you. I don't think so.
Well, no worries. Well, we definitely know where to find all that information.
Exactly.
I've got another question here. Let's see. From Joseph. He says, if I were using NAS traffic, should it have a higher priority than VM traffic?
It all depends on what you're doing. Normally, they want you to have the VM traffic with higher priority. That's the default setting. If you are using a NAS, I hope, or iSCSI or other TCP/IP based, storage. I would hope that you have dedicated NICs to it, but I know in this world of blades and 10 gigs, you might not have it. So normally you want, I mean, people are accessing applications. Many times a server will respond with data out of its own RAM. It doesn't necessarily have to hit the storage to do everything that the server does. So normally you want the server to have a higher priority than your NFS traffic. But in reality, in actual world, if you have that situation where you only have two 10 gig NICs, I would put a reservation. I would definitely do that. And I think, let me actually give this, because I saw this, he made a really nice explanation of that. I think it was V. Hershey. Let's see if I can find it. 2 10 gig uplinks design. Well, that's Kendrick. Oh, no, I'm pretty sure it was V. Hershey. I put that right. I wonder if I'm writing it wrong. Come on. For God's sake, hold on. Let me just find the correct spelling for this guy.
Oh, it's Hersey. Sorry. Yeah, there's no H. There's only the one in the front. Hersey Cartwright.
Oh, there we go. Excellent.
Yeah.
2 10 gig design.
So I'm not quite sure what Joseph is referring to specifically, because of course you would want to make sure that your storage is at least as available as your VM. It doesn't make any sense for your VM to have more compute capabilities and maybe workload demand with under sized storage reservation. So I'm not quite sure if the question is about specifically to the type of storage traffic, it being a NAS versus SAN or something else, or what. Have you ever heard of a situation, Ariel, where you might want to make some sort of a different NIOC accommodation based on the type of storage you're using? Or is it all kind of mostly the same?
What I've seen a lot, especially in that DCD group, is just the cases where you only have two 10 gig NICs and it's either iSCSI or NFS. This was the post that I was talking about. It was actually 3 1 gig NICs. And let me just give it to you, and maybe you can put it out on the VBrownBag. What I like about this post was that he was talking a lot about the assumptions and the risks and what to do on this. So in the end, he gives this design and he explains exactly why each one of these is done this way. So I think if you have this situation where you have not that many uplinks and you have to do network IO control because of your situation, give this post a read. I think it will be valuable for you, just because I think that he did it very nicely. However, to your question, Damien, does it make any difference if it's NFS or iSCSI? No, I mean it's your storage. You want it to be as clean as possible, and if you can't for some reason do it cleanly, then you will probably have to figure it out yourself, and in your own case with your own VMs and your own application, and see how it behaves the best.
Cool. Well, thank you. I think that answers all the questions. Let me just verify. Yeah, I think we're good to go. I appreciate your time very much, and I know that your time is appreciated by others as well. Let's see. Someone might be raising their hand here. Boy, this GoToWebinar thing, always so awesome.
I'm sorry to Hershey for putting Hershey.
I'm sure it happens all the time. He's a super cool guy. If you see him at the Emerald, buy him a beer. He's a good person.
I will. I definitely will.
Yep. All right. Well, yeah, that wraps it up. Thank you very much for your time, everyone, and we will see you next Wednesday, same time, same place. Thank you. Have a good day.
Thank you. Have a good one.